Hi, it's Ms. Richmond, and we're going to find out how to decide whether a relation is a function. This is Chapter 1.8, the extension. We've actually already done this with respect to charts, but we'll do a quick review here. So in this first one, remember it's a function if for every value of x, that is every element of the domain, there is exactly one element of the range. So if we look at this first one, we can say that if I put in a 3, I know I'll get 1. If I put in 5, I know I'll get 6. 7 gives me 8, 9 gives me 2, and 11 gives me 1. So yes, this is a function. If you give me an x, I can tell you exactly what y is coming out. If I look at this other one down here, we'll notice that 5 is written twice. There are still only 3, 5, 7, 9, and 11 are the elements of the domain. 5 is written twice because for 5, you don't know if you put in a 5 if you're going to get out a 3 or a 0. That means that for the element 5, there are 2 possible elements of the range. So this is not a function. Okay, so for a chart, it's pretty easy to tell. You just see if for every value of the domain, there's exactly one value of the range. In this case, 5 had 2 values. It's not a function. In this case, everyone had exactly one value. It is a function. Okay, now let's look at what happens if we have the graph of a relation. So here's a relation, and remember, a relation is a function if for every value of x, there is exactly one value of y. So if I look at the values of x's that I have on this particular relation, for each value of x, remember, here's 1 point, so this is one element of the domain. There's only one element of the range. So for this point, it has an x and a y. This x has only one 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 y. And finally, this x has only one y. Now, it may seem that that would be true for every possible relation that I could graph. But let's look at some others just to get a sense of what could happen. So what if I had something instead where the graph, let's see if I have blue here, where the graph looked like this. Is this a function? So I've got this blue, lovely S curve, down and around. Okay? Now remember again, it's a function if for every value of x, there is exactly one value of y. So let's pick a value of x and see if there's one value of y. Let's pick, for example, the value x equals 2. Well, when x equals 2, this is one of the values of y equals 0, and that's on my relation. But this is also a point on my relation. And you'll notice that up here, y is something like about 5.4 or something. Okay, so for the value x equals 2, so far I have 2 values of y. So already it's not a function, because if I were to list the domain for x being 2, I would have 2 values of y, There's actually another one up here. There's another one here. And another one here. So these are all values on the relation. They're all points on the relation. And for the x being 2, y has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible different values. So this is not a function. This blue one is not a function. Remember function FCN. All right, let's change to a different color. Maybe this time we'll do red. And let's try something else. Let's try something like this time. And see if we think this is a function. So it's a function if for every value of x along this number line, there's exactly one value of y. So if I pick any x, for example right here, and I find the value of the curve at that point, there it is. Notice, for this value of x, there's only one value of y. In this case, it's 3. For any value of x, in fact, even if it's not a whole number, such as here, I can go straight up and find a value of y. Whoops, it's not exactly straight across, is it? So my y value would be someplace around there. So for this value of x, there's only one value of y. And that would be true for any place along this red curve. So the red curve is a function. Okay, and this curve here is a function. Notice that the way to test for this is to check and see if for your x you have only one y. And hopefully you can see that if you pick an x and you look for the y, what you're really doing here is actually drawing a line, and you're drawing a very special line. You're drawing a vertical line to find out, is there one or more than one place that your vertical line crosses your curve. So for the red curve, no matter where I draw my vertical line, it's going to cross the curve only once. So for every value of x in my domain, I have only one value of y. It only crosses once. If I go back to my blue curve, I can do the same. This is called the vertical line test for obvious reasons. The same vertical line test, and I can quickly see that there's at least one place where my vertical line crosses my curve more than once. When that happens, that means that it's not a function. So there's actually many, many places. But the fact that it happens even once means that this guy is not a function. Okay? So the vertical line test is a great test to use to tell if something is a function. You can just check and use the vertical line test. That's it.